I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Sage, joined by my buddy Patrick McCray, author of the Dark Shadows Daybook. We're here to discuss episode 1218 of 1841 Parallel Time. Mary Cooper does the voiceover for this episode. She plays Josette Dupre Collins.
Yeah. Mary Cooper.
Yep. What an episode. What a voiceover. She doesn't do a lot of voiceovers, but when she does, man, she delivers.
Jewel, I'm trying to think of someone who mentioned several times in a previous podcast how excited you were going to be about the voiceover in this episode. I keep wondering, who was that?
I think it was this really smart gentleman named Patrick McCray.
Well, you need to get him on here because you're stuck with me for now. So anyway, there is another Patrick McCray. He's the good one. He's got a PhD and he writes books about technology and science. And I tried contacting him once because I thought he'd think, oh, cool, there's another Patrick McCray. Right? No, he had important things to do, I mean, yeah. It was like Gilligan contacting Neil deGrasse Tyson.
More important than talk to you?
There are such things, trust me.
Nah.
Okay. From your lips to somebody's ears.
Man, Catherine Heritage and her sister Daphne, man, Laura Parker, the chemistry between her, really good. I love how they start this episode off with they're announcing her marriage to Bram. She's announcing she's going to marry Bramwell.
Yeah.
You're going to get a big confrontation between Laura Parker's Catherine Heritage Collins, I should say, and Bramwell Collins, which you knew was coming. What did you think of Daphne Heritage and Catherine Heritage?
It's a strong episode for both of them. It's a very soapy episode.
Yep.
But it's a big mistake to take Ambien and a laxative. But it's also a big mistake. I'm just going to tell you, Jewel, don't do it. It's also a big mistake when you say soap opera to just immediately think, oh, well, that means the acting is not good. And so, if I say, well, it was soap opera, but it was still all right, I'm a big fathead. That's not a good thing to say. The acting, I think, on soap operas is terrific across the board. They're under tremendous demands and they make alterations very quickly and adjustments very quickly. If you watch what the scripts demand of them. And so, Laura Parker and, Mrs. King are really doing a magnificent job here. They are exhibits A and B in why soap opera acting is so strong.
Yeah, I really like how when she goes over to the old house and you see Bramwell, he's taking a drink of wine. And he turns around and there's Catherine, Laura Parker. So Laura Parker and Bramwell have this confrontation. And he says, you're not going to stop my marriage no more than I stopped yours. Obviously you're not going to get a duel between sisters. That would just be crazy.
It would be.
But I tell you who I love in this episode. I love Kathy Cody's Carrie Stokes in this episode.
Is it just me or does Kathy Cody look like she has aged about 5 years in just a few months?
She looks more 18 to 21 than she does a teenager.
All this bone structure has appeared in her face and there's just a bearing to her that's remarkable. And obviously she's aging, and teenagers age in weird ways. But also I feel like she's really picked up, great acting habits from her co-stars.
It makes you wish she was more. You talked about before about how the way she was introduced. I wish more she was introduced the way she was here in this arc than in the 1970 arc.
I'm sure she does too.
Because I think her character is more important in this arc. She's more of a damsel in the 1970 arc.
Well, at least she's in a position here to deliver important information.
Yep. And she does too. I mean, she's this medium, and they've basically not, but just basically what they've done here is they've taken Gerard Stiles' character and they've basically just pushed him to the side and made Carrie the major medium.
Gerard Stiles, there's some Sebastian Shaw.
Yep.
Some of the Faye family, Letitia and Pansy with the psychic action. So, they are part of that long tradition of psychics that I go back to Peter Guthrie.
Yeah.
Was he psychic really, or was he a psychic researcher?
Not psychic. He was a parapsychologist.
No, there was just one of him.
Well, yeah.
A para. I thought you said a pair of psychologists. Because his brother also appears on the show in Parallel Time.
Yeah, he does. Now,
they like associating Guthrie with things called para.
Yes.
Parapsychology, parallel time. That's all I got, Jewel. It's the end of the week.
Now, I really like too how the Mary Cooper's Josette really, really shines in this episode as well too. I mean, Josette isn't in a ton of episodes in 1841, but the episode she's in, she matters. And that's something I love here with this. Every character they put in these episodes, each has their own foothold of, this is why this character matters. This is why this character matters. And it's the same thing for Mary Cooper's Josette here too. She has a conversation with Bramwell and Catherine that, hey, you don't have to rush into this marriage. And it's a very good discussion that she has with Bramwell about how she loved Barnabas very much, but after Barnabas died, she made a lot of mistakes. Now we're going to come to find out what mistakes she made later on.
Yeah.
But really, really great acting by Mary Cooper.
Well, how refreshing. How refreshing to get this finally a second middle-aged woman on the show, this august, intense woman, I mean, and probably a better actor than Joan Bennett. Joan Bennett was wonderful, but Joan Bennett, there's this great line. Did you ever see the movie My Favorite Year?
I probably did, but it's been so long.
O'Toole. Oh, you got to see. Oh, Jewel, man, you'd love this movie. I mean, you seriously would love this movie. But there's this. He plays this Douglas Fairbanks type performer who gets booked on your show of shows or something like that, and realizes it's live and not taped. And he has his great line, appeared in all the trailers. He says, "I'm not an actor. I'm a movie star." And that doesn't mean that a movie star is not capable of some wonderful acting, but at the end of the day, they are a movie star, and they're good at glamour and fame and so on and so forth. And Joan Bennett, God bless her, is a little bit more of a movie star. That's why I enjoy, and she's great at getting offended. She's very good at that, clutching the pearls and so on and so forth, being benevolent in the advice department. That's why I love her in 1840 so much, is because there she is, and she gets to act. She gets to do something other than be the Joan Bennett character. However, the actress who's playing Josette here there's just a rooted authenticity in what she's doing. It is not acting. She's very good at being.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
How much does Mary Cooper sound a bit like Catherine Lee Scott a bit here?
We talked about that, Jewel, and I tried listening for it. I think you hear it a little bit more clearly than I do. That's not to say it's not there.
Right. It's really well done how she does the voice of Josette, because like when you hear her very first voiceover in this arc, she doesn't sound like her character. Then in the second reading, she slightly sounds like her character a little more, and I think they told her to. I get the suspicion they told her to.
Do you think by her character, do you mean like Catherine Lee Scott?
No, I think they told Mary Cooper after the first voiceover, because in her first voiceover for 1841 Parallel Time, she does not sound like the Josette character. But I think this is her second voiceover reading, and in it, she sounds a little more like the character she's portraying. Now, when she talks as Josette, to me, she sounds a bit like Catherine Lee Scott.
So is this her second episode? Boom.
I think this is her second voiceover episode.
Okay.
Now because she's been in other episodes for 1841 Parallel Time, but this is I believe this episode is her second voiceover.
So she's also getting some time just getting used to the part.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a lot of it is because I don't know really how Henry Kaplan and Leela Swift, very bright people, so they might have found language for this, but I know that if I had been playing Josette, which I often imagine myself as a middle-aged Josette in private moments, but and they said be more like Josette, I don't. Okay, what does that mean? But if I start getting used to the scripts and given circumstances and things like that I'm asked to do and the sort of choices I see the character making, I begin to get more in that mindset. Mm. And some of it just could be confidence.
Yep. And I think Mary Cooper is very confident in this episode. And I think she's very confident in the first episode she does actually appear as Josette in. The one regret I have about this whole arc here is that Mary Cooper and Joan Bennett are not in a lot of scenes together.
Well, yeah, Jimmy Olsen mentioned the same thing to me and thought it was ironic that never saw Mary Cooper and Superman at the same time, and I wondered how that was. And I just said, "Look at your signal watch, Jimmy." They would have had a sensible off to see who could be more sensible, and that's the sort of contest they have on C-SPAN.
Now, what did you think of because the premonition that Carrie Stokes has about Daphne dying here
at the end of the episode?
Yep.
The moment she has a premonition, and we see a graveyard and we know it's been going, there's Bromwell's involved and all of that. Gee, I wonder whose tombstone he's going to see, because we know that he has to get together with Laura Parker. The whole episode's telling us, give up, Daphne. So just because something is predictable doesn't make it a bad piece of storytelling. In some ways, it can be a very good piece of storytelling because, and this is one of my favorite lines just about storytelling, as said by James Whale, it's part of the ritual.
Yeah.
And it's part of the ritual.
What I really like what the writers are doing here is they're telling you a certain aspect that, hey, because with premonitions, they usually do happen on Dark Shadows. But what I like here is because this is parallel time, we sort of have to take this with a pinch of salt. It may happen. It may not happen. We know it's going to happen. But it's still worth having that moment of suspense. Like, oh, my God, is Carrie going to be right?
Sure.
And I like how they do that, too. I like how they do this very suspenseful to the graveyard, and she's saying what she's seen, and she's telling Daphne this, and so and it says Daphne Heritage Collins. Very, very well done. Mm-hmm. But I also like how we do get conversations between Josette and Mary Cooper and Daphne Heritage. Yeah. Really well, because she convinces Daphne to, hey, you need to think about this. But I really love Mary Cooper and Laura Parker's interaction with each other as their characters. Really well done.
It's strong. Yeah. It's a parallel universe rematch with Josette that never happened in the first place in that universe, or with Angelique, that never quite happened in that universe in the first place. But symbolically, it has a lot of weight. And, this is one of these episodes that's more metaphor than literal, because we're watching it with the knowledge of, in the other universe, the analog of Angelique made life very difficult for Josette, who did not wind up with anything other than the fuzzy end of the lollipop. And now things are very different. And it encourages you to look at, as I said, these characters as more, it's just one kind of cosmic character that they're playing, and they just have different sort of names and masks that they take on and take off. But if you look at them as if they were the same person all the way through, and it's almost like they're going into the holodeck and they're playing different aspects of themselves, then you really get something. If you don't get something, then talking about it is like what Roger Ebert said in his review of Jaws: The Revenge, where he said, "What shark would not want revenge on the widow of the man who murdered it?"
Yeah.
It's the premise of the movie. It makes no sense, but there you go.
When I watched this episode 4 times, and I really, every time I watched Laura Parker and Mary Cooper in that scene, I was just like this, because I'm thinking, man, I'm picturing Angelique and I'm picturing Josette in a sense, even though they're not those exact characters from that time we know. It was real. The writers were very clever here, and so were the actresses very clever here.
Sure. And you're getting out of it, I believe, exactly what they want you to get out of it.
Yep.
So you are in line with the vision of the show.
And I really like too that she's telling Mary Cooper's Josette is telling Catherine Heritage Collins, you should have done nothing. She's telling her Daphne is rethinking it, and it's an important conversation that they're having. And I love how Josette ends the conversation. To think, if you would have only waited, how much different your lives would be, and happier. And she's really meaning about Bramwell, and it too, and I love it.
Yeah. And it's ultimately about this relationship that we've seen for the past few years.
Yeah, it's a good little. It's a character who gets to give a little verbal gut punch at the end without looking like an asshole, and it's good.
I kind of wonder if Catherine Lee Scott has ever seen these episodes.
Oh, I hope so.
I hope so too. But you would be surprised with a number of the actors on the show how little Dark Shadows maybe they have seen, because they were busy filming Dark Shadows every day at 4:30 in the afternoon. Yeah. So and of course at this point she was out of the country. I don't know.
If you talk the next time you talk to her, ask her if she's seen these episodes, and ask her to watch them. I think she'd enjoy it. They're really good.
So let it be written, so let it be done.
I mean, I really think that Catherine would appreciate Mary Cooper's performance and all the rest of the cast too. I mean, it's really well written episodes, and
she made them.
Yeah, she may have. I hope she has, but still. What's your favorite moment in this episode here?
I got to tell you, anything with Mary Cooper.
Yeah.
Because it is a voice from another universe where everything went right for someone with whom we've seen everything go wrong.
Yeah.
And there is just such a sense of cosmic satisfaction in that. It's, oh, how nice. This went well for them. Normally when we see, you know, a parallel universe where everything goes well, it's played by the same actor and they're, smoking jackets, smoking cigars and living it up and so on and so forth. We never see them in their autumn years. And that's really interesting to me.
When I was at my doctor's appointment, I was telling him that, the importance of Mary Cooper's Josette Dupre Collins, of having this character live a life that she didn't get to live in another time, is huge. And it's a lot more important than what people realize.
I agree.
He's like, I've never seen it. I think you got to go watch it. Really good.
Yeah. Yeah. There's jokes I shouldn't make about conversations in doctors' offices. I'm not even going to do it. I'll text them to you.
Well, here's the thing too, like, because the Josette we know, the Josette and the other Tomlin, I mean, we've seen her go off Widow's Hill. We know how she went off Widow's Hill. We know why she went off of it. And then we saw the after effect of it where they had the makeup and where she looked like she went off Widow's Hill. So we've seen, and most importantly, what were we introduced to first? What ghost were we introduced to first? Josette's ghost. And this moment here, it doesn't take away from those moments. If anything, it adds to them, because now you're seeing the character for the first time alive in older age, to get to live a life that the other one didn't get to live.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Really, really awesome.
It is a better world. In some ways, it is a memo from a better world. And it's from a world where, eventually Collinwood's first and last curse will be solved,
Did you go back and watch the previous episode that we just covered prior to this?
Yes, I did.
Did you see the portrait of Brutus?
But you mean in the prior?
In the prior episode. Sorry.
Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah, it sort of looks like Jonathan. I know we talked about that in the prior episode.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they have Louis Edmonds cast at that point for Brutus. I mean, I'm glad they get him, but
I wonder if Louis had already moved on to another soap opera at this point.
I wonder too.
I think he may have. I don't know. Let me do my Butch impression and look it up. If I can. Let's see. Suddenly my Q scores went up. I almost typed in Butch Rosenbaum into IMDb. What am I looking at? Oh, Louis Edmonds. Yeah, let's see. Louis Edmonds. What a guy. You know what's going on at this time in 1968? Second to last episode of 1795.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's see. Search for Tomorrow. He didn't join until 1979. Let's see. Louis. I don't know if he did. I don't know what he was doing at this point. Neither does Louis. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't. Let's see. All My Children, but he started in that in 1979.
Yeah.
But nobody cares about Langley, as he would say in a song called "Nobody Cares About Langley." So,
I think he may have been like on the reserve for the cast and then they just called him back to play Brutus, which I'm glad they did. But this episode
trooped in.
Yeah. This episode, I mean, really good. Mary Cooper's voiceover is awesome. And I love that we get these very tense moments between these two sisters. And, you still have Bramwell, who's who's teasing Catherine. Do you?
Yeah.
Like, I know Jonathan Frid. I know we're not going to get any more Dark Shadows post 1841 parallel time, but if there would have, do you think? I know Keith Prentice is probably going to be the main lead, but do you think Jonathan, like, let's say hypothetical, Dark Shadows would have continued, but Jonathan Frid leaves?
Yeah, he had been fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think at some point he would have come back?
No, I don't. I wish I could say yes and we could geek out over it. And I can say yes and we can geek out over it as though it had happened. I think there was not very good blood between, so to speak, between him and Uncle Dan. And, you know, I don't get the impression that Dan was one to, oh, come here, pal. I don't know what I was thinking. And, you know, Jonathan Frid, who is a controlled enough, deliberate enough, rich enough, heir to a Canadian construction empire, that Jonathan Frid didn't have to do anything Jonathan Frid didn't want to do. And so I mean, I suspect if somebody higher up at ABC had done, ho, 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 Jonathan, it's a lot of money, even for you. Ho, ho, ho. I think Jonathan Frid would have said yes, yes, yes. But I think, no, I think he did 900 episodes of the show.
Yeah, he did.
He had his fill. You know, that's one of the things about this whole field of study that's tough for fans, and it's tough for me. I mean, you know, and I saw this when I was in Los Angeles a lot, but just because you do something doesn't mean you're a fan of it. And that's not me saying anything about anyone on Dark Shadows or so on and so forth, but just speculating about Jonathan Frid joining the No Fun Club, meaning me. I have no real evidence that, you know, here's a question from everything you've seen in interviews, et cetera, et cetera. Is Jonathan Frid a guy who'd be stopping everything at 4:30 in the afternoon to watch Dark Shadows if he weren't on it?
Probably not.
That's a really interesting test. You know, it's kind of like Avery Brooks in DS9. So, Avery, what are you doing tonight? Playing piano, bum, bum, bum. You know, you don't want to watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine? No, I don't.
Did you see the episode where they were talking about the musical number they did on DS9, Avery Brooks was, and he goes, it's not the melody that I had. He goes, it's the goddamn hopscotch.
Oh, Move Along Home? Yeah, that was about 30 years ago that they did Move Along Home. There's an article about it. But Avery just kills it with Best Is Yet to Come.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. Is there anything you want to add before we get on out of this episode?
Sure. You need to watch My Favorite Year. You would go nuts. You would really like it. And its tendrils move in and out of the world of Dark Shadows very interestingly. It's the first movie directed by Richard Benjamin also.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great movie.
My Favorite Year. So is it on Stream Anywhere or?
We'll find it, damn it. We'll find it.
I will
talk about it. You'll have I swear to God, you'll have a great time.
I'm going to check Pluto and Tubi, and I'll scope TCM because they always have old movies on that I watch. So
sounds good.
For Patrick McCray, go pick up the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound. Link will be in the description box.
Hey, are you reading any of that?
I am going to read some of it tomorrow.
Good. Thank you.
I know I haven't did a read along in a while. I apologize.
That's okay.
But I'm going to read some of it tomorrow, and then I'm going to read some over at the nighttime, Friday and Friday night, and then late Saturday night, because I have a podcast with Butch, but then Sunday night as well. So I'm going to do a bunch of read-alongs at night. So
wonderful.
But go pick up the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound, written by this gentleman here, Patrick McCray. Very, very wise man. Patrick, man, this has been a blast to have fun. How does Sunday night look for you?
I'm busy on a podcast with Jules Singh talking about the next episode of 1841 or whatever you want to talk about.
Which will be 1,219.
It's getting close. It's getting close.
You know what's interesting? I like how they do. I know we're going to discuss it, but I really like how they do the flashback in this arc too. So.
I do too. Is it the flashback episode?
No, that's not till later. That's not till 1,236, I believe.
Oh.
But so we're a ways away yet. So
your kid will be 36 by then. Out of the tree of life, I just picked me a plum. All right.
You are the man, brother. Yeah, take care.
Take care, sir. Bye.
Bye-bye.